There are 3 lies in chronic fatigue recovery that keep people stuck for a long time. And the first one is pacing. The second one is the baseline. And the third one, well, nobody talks about it, but it's the most dangerous. So in the CFS community, it is almost accepted that by doing something outside of your comfort zone or outside of your energy zone, that you will develop symptoms. Just like Lars, for example, when he went during his recovery to the gym to try some weightlifting. And then after that, he developed symptoms.
But then today after the weightlifting, I had quite bad symptoms. I had lots of brain fog and fatigue. It's like a wonder, actually. You can't believe it. Like 1 hour before, I had so crazy symptoms, and now I feel really good. It's really strange, but it really works. So good luck.
But by applying the releases, he became symptom-free again. So that means something else is going on here. And let's dive deeper into that. But before I'll show you how to stop the push and crash cycle, let's dive deeper into what it really is. And in the previous episode, I showed you this graph of the autonomic nervous system going from freeze response to freeze response to freeze response. And that represents the push and crash cycle. Then after a crash, you slowly wind down back into the stress response. And at that moment, you can push yourself. And that will end up into symptoms again. And then you have to wait and wind down. And then you push yourself. And that goes on and on and on. And for me, this sort of like happened in like 2-week sacraments over a period of like 6 years. And this kept me stuck for a very, very long time. Eventually, I learned how to deal with the stress response before I started pushing myself and before I entered the freeze response. And then I had a release and I stopped this cycle. But let's dive deeper into what is really important, and that's the comfort zone. So the comfort zone is a place that you are safe to move in. Let's say it's your house if you're housebound, or your bed when you're bedbound. Maybe it's cooking, maybe it's doing some small cleaning work, maybe it's sitting in the garden, and you feel safe. But everything outside of that makes you feel a little bit afraid, and that's the fear zone. And we don't really have to talk about the other zones, because these 2 zones are the most important in your recovery. In a chronic illness, however, we see that the fear zone gets huge, basically because your comfort zone gets smaller and smaller and smaller, until eventually it becomes scary to go to the bathroom. It becomes maybe scary to go outside of your house, and you're making your life smaller and smaller because you're probably listening to the symptoms. And anything in the fear zone can be, for example, mental, like thinking about your life, your future. It can be doing some physical activities, but it can also be some emotional stuff, like, for example, a funeral or a breakup or having to deal with the problems of a loved one. That can all cause you to enter the fear zone. If you keep making your life smaller, your comfort zone becomes almost non-existent. And everything becomes part of fear. Even things like arranging stuff or having a conversation, doing groceries. And most people with a chronic illness are living their lives like that. And then it's about what to do with the fear. Is it actually still possible, or do I always need to make my life smaller and smaller and smaller? Because I think that eventually there is no comfort zone anymore, and everything is fear. When there is too much fear, the body can't handle it, and it shuts down and it goes into the freeze response of the autonomic nervous system. And in that phase, the limbic system of the brain protects you against the overwhelming fear by creating a shutdown in the form of a crash or a migraine attack or a depression or extreme fatigue, etc. And then most people are just gradually waiting for their symptoms to improve until they can start again. Now, the solution, according to many people, especially when I was dealing with this stuff, is pacing. And with pacing, the idea is that you create a baseline, meaning every day you have to measure your activities and you have to spend more or less the same amount of energy, and gradually you can improve your baseline. But when you go over it, you're going to pay the price, let's say a crash or symptoms, and then you have to lower your baseline. I'm not a really big fan of this because you might have some form of control over your situation and you might actually temporarily increase, but maybe you only need to have like one small thing that you didn't expect, and all your progress seems to be gone. After coaching many hundreds of people with CFS, I started tracking the relationship between pacing and recovery time. And as it turned out, the ones who were pacing had a longer recovery time. It's almost the exact opposite. Therefore, pacing worked only for a very, very small group of people. Let's say 20% of all my former clients. But for the 80%, it didn't work because they're not dealing with the root issue. So I had to go back. I had to remove this completely from the old free recovery program. I started talking with clients. I started discussing this with Valentina, and I had to come up with something completely different. And I call it positive pacing. With positive pacing, we have the comfort zone. And on a good day, we recommend people to go over their comfort zone, let's say 20 minutes a day, to do something to make that exercise safe and to not act from fight or flight energy. So don't act in a stressful way. It's about implementing some proper rest. And my own coach told me that rest equals pleasure. And it's not just about waiting in bed and overthinking your life. It's about exploring gently the world outside of your comfort zone, but not from a mind-driven way, but from a body-driven way. Your body decides the pace. Your body decides what you can do. And by tuning into your body, you can become aware of the stress response before you enter the freeze response, and you can actually stop things. So when you're doing positive pacing, it's not about the results of the activities. It's about doing them. And you can do things at a 70% pace, a little bit slower, to really make sure that it's not about the result, but about the safety that you experience while doing these activities. And on a good day only, when you move outside of the comfort zone for, let's say, just 20 minutes in a gentle activity that is just slightly outside of the comfort zone, then after that, it's about dealing with the fear from the fear zone. So then you go to bed, calm your body down, bring safety, and if you can, connect with the fear that was triggered by doing things outside of the comfort zone. And ideally, you would cry, because fear is an emotion. And if you resolve the emotion, then the emotion is gone. And we can't do that when we go into extreme fear. But gentle, slightly, we can make actually a lot of progress over the course of a few weeks. And every time we resolve the fear. And that's why I'm doing the release program. Because a release means that you're dealing with the underlying emotion that the brain perceives as a danger. In this case, fear. You feel it through. And I know that for many people this is very hard in the beginning. But after some practice, you can actually connect with the part of you that feels afraid. And by allowing that, by being very gentle and kind towards yourself, you can maybe start crying gently and resolving the fear. And that's when you have successfully expanded the comfort zone. So when it comes to the 3 lies in CFS recovery, old school pacing keeps you stuck. It's too mind-driven and it doesn't resolve the fear, the underlying emotion. Also, the baseline doesn't exist because it's not about the activities that you're doing, but about the stress that you are experiencing, and most of all, the emotional stress that is being triggered by doing things outside of the comfort zone. And then the 3rd lie is the spoony theory. And this tells you that you have limited energy and that you can only do so much. So they're like spoons. You have like 5 spoons to spend during a day. So you better be very, very careful. Again, fear. I used to believe this. This was being told to me by doctors. And it was deeply ingrained inside of me. And sometimes, like this week, when I did a very intense hike, all of a sudden I got a fear response because there was still some belief inside of me that by going outside of my comfort zone, that I'm going to develop symptoms. And indeed, they developed. But by doing the releases, I became symptom-free again. And this is a picture of me doing the hike. It was absolutely beautiful. And it's completely worth it because I developed symptoms, but I also released them almost immediately. And I expanded my comfort zone. And that's just really beautiful. So from all the tips and advices that I gave you in this video, what could you implement straight away? Because implementing everything all at once is probably too overwhelming. So just pick 1 or 2 things and start working with that immediately. And the next time when you develop a symptom because of the push and crush cycle, come back to this video, watch it again, and maybe as well share this video with others who can use this information. And of course, like and subscribe.